So, good morning. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to do a little presentation about our winery and our wines. Thank you, Steinar and Caroline. Thank you for coming. My name is Konrad Salwey. I am the owner of Weingut Salwey. Weingut Salwey is located in the Kaiserstuhl area, which is in the southwestern part of Germany, in the Weinbaugebiet Baden. The Kaiserstuhl itself is a volcanic area. So we have here we have vineyards. In the bottom, well, everything is a volcano, but meanwhile 70% of the surface is covered by loess lime. So when we are talking about wines from Kaiserstuhl area, they're either grown on loess lime soil or on volcanic soil. The loess lime soils naturally have a better water holding capacity. So the loess lime soils tend to produce a little bit more quantity. The volcanic soils are the water holding capacity is lower, so the volcanic soils you generally produce lower quantities. We in our winery, my father founded the winery, so it was founded in 1964, and I am the second generation working in it. But I have the mother of my father. She is from a wine growing family. Via my grandmother, we produce wine or grow wine since I think 1740. But they even used to have a winery, but it went to the other direction of the family. And my father, my name, Salwey, is a name that came from East Prussia after World War II. And as refugees after World War II, East Prussia became Poland and Russia. And so my family started wine in 64. We cultivate ourselves today 22 hectares and have another 30 hectares under contract. That means we buy the grapes, but we go with the families that grow these or that cultivate these vineyards. We go from, always depending the year and depending what is necessary, we go from 5 to 10 times, visit them and guide them to what we think is right, and also listen to what they think is a good solution currently. So I am momentarily very, very happy with this situation because it gives me the opportunity to learn a lot. Unfortunately, my father died in 2011. It was a car accident, so since 2011 I am alone in the winery. But I have my wife, my children, and very, very good employees. Since that none of the employees, after I was alone to take over, none of the employees left. So it seems like the atmosphere, the mood is still good. And we are now currently just before the harvest in 2020, and desperate to see how everything will work out. The situation currently for me is that the summer 2020 was very, very dry. We had good rain in June. It was 100 liters in June, but since June we had a total of I think it's 45 liters until now. So the situation is that the berries remained very small. The number of cells that have been built up inside the berry remains small. So 2020 looks like we have again like 2010 or 13, or will have a vintage with a very narrow skin juice balance. So this is basically for us the rest or the history of my family. The rest, what I will or come to my mind, and I think that is necessary to tell. I think is better in the tasting. So I would propose. I have one question. How many glasses do each of you have? Is it 2 or 3? How many glasses do we have? 3? Okay. So my proposal currently would be to pour all the 3 red wines at once. So we have the chance to talk about the first one and give the next 2 some time to take in air. I have just opened them today and tasted them, and I felt like they, well, it's all still very young vintages, 17 and 18, and they are still desperate for some air. Do you have any questions so far?
Not really.
I gave the wine some air before the journalists came in.
Ah, okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So the first wine is 2018. 2018 for us was vintages, the earliest vintage that we ever had. We started harvesting on the 22nd of August and finished harvest on the 15th of September. So this was a very, very quick harvest, only 3 weeks. And when I came home in 2002, the first harvest that I was at home, it took us 8 weeks to harvest everything. But at that time, my father, he was very passionate about making each single vineyard site or each, well, almost each parcel to produce that separately. So at that time, we produced over 100 different wines each year. That was a very high number to taste, and I have to apologize. Today we only produce 17 different wines each year, but even the 17 would be plenty to taste today. But if we still had 100, imagine what we would have to taste today. The vintage 18 is for me characterized by the very, very thick skins due to the high sun impact on the berries, on the skins on the berries. So the skins were very thick, and the potential of anthocyanins that later on are responsible for color and aroma. The amount of anthocyanins was very, very high. Almost as high as 2011, which was so far the vintage with the highest anthocyanin level that we ever measured, since we were able to measure. 2018 to characterize is not that easy for us. It was the most important aspect was to try to make wines that are elegant. We had a must weight increase that we measured during 1 week of 2.5% volume of alcohol. So we were forced to start harvest early and then harvest quickly. I personally prefer the wines when I drink them when they are in the range of 12.5 or 13.5% volume. So, well, I think my father worked a different way. Sometimes he made wines with even 15.5% alcohol, but I have to admit I am not the size of my father. he was able to digest these wines very well, and me today, I'm able to drink more when they have a little less of alcohol. So the challenge for us of keeping the vintage 2018 alive and vivid was, on the one hand, to harvest very early, and then on the second hand, we made a slight change in style. We stopped for the fermentation process. We stopped to make a too long cold maceration time. In the years before, the last year was 2016, we even had 10 days of cold maceration, and in 17, we were afraid of losing too much acidity by the cold maceration time, by having potassium that is being drawn from the skins and building the potassium tartric salt and fall out. So we try to protect the acidity. And the second thing was that after the fermentation and having them put into barrels, we tried to be as reductive as possible to protect the aroma. I have tasted a lot of wines in 2018 where when I taste them, I get the impression that it would be a blend of Pinot Noir and Syrah. And this was for me a very, very careful thing to try to avoid as good as possible, to make them as characteristic for Pinot Noir as possible. So that means we tried to protect the fruit in the barrels as good as possible, and that is also the reason why we went out of the oak, or we didn't hose them off with a pump in 2008. Well, we did some tests in 17, and in 2018 we took them all out of the barrels by argon gas. So they have still a slight I'd say carbon dioxide, the 2018s, but they're still young. The carbon dioxide that is still in it, it comes from protecting as much as possible to avoid oxidation. And now in the end, it would be possible to blow out the carbon dioxide by nitrogen. But we always lose some fruit when we do that, because when the gas is going through the wines, the fruit potential is getting lower. So 2018 is quite dark in color. We normally do not have these intense colors, but 2018 is for us quite dark. Normally they're a little bit higher, more ruby in color, but this is I have to admit, it is very, very popular to have a little bit darker wines. So we take it like it is and live very well with a darker color. The fruit is the nose is very fruit pure for me currently, very, very open, easy to approach, and the tannin structure that we worked on the estate is we did not do a lot of whole cluster fermentation. That means here in 2018 around 85 to 90% was destemmed, and only 10 to 15% were whole cluster. The whole cluster is for me, especially in a very, very hot year, important to keep a certain reductiveness in the wine, but for an estate, we always look for an early approachable fruit. So, cheers. Do you have any questions so far? Nope. Okay.
Yes. Can you just quickly tell us where you picked the grapes from the stage that Burgundy? Which area?
This is well, I can take you. Shall I show a little bit the vineyards? Would that be?
Yeah, you can do it now. Yeah.
Because yeah. Okay. You are in. I took you into the vineyard cabin. So now you see it. Okay. I am inside the vineyards today, and this is a view along the Kaiserstuhl, and this is an area just ahead with loess lime soil. This is where the estate Spätburgunder comes from, the big terraces, but also a vineyard like this one here. While currently this one is a Pinot Blanc vineyard, but vineyards like this, that means loess lime terraces where the fruit is loess lime soil always concentrates on fruit. So when you grow, you see. Can I make that bigger? Well, you see the soil is rather chalky white, and this is always very good to have a very pure fruit. Then over there, later on, we will taste a vineyard which is called Eichberg. Just behind that crane, there is a vineyard called Eichberg, which is a volcanic soil. And here, between this village and the neighbor village, is the vineyard called Henkenberg. It is not very, how do we say, stunning to look at, but it's a very good soil, very black soil, very characteristic. So the grapes where the estate is grown on, or all of our estate wines, Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, this is loess lime soil. The higher qualities we try to produce on those vineyards that naturally have a smaller crop. So we do not need to reduce crop there. So if you want to proceed to the next one, leave the first one still in the glass. But the next one, the 2018 Henkenberg, here, well, is still quite young. When you take the first nose, it's still a little bit oaky. The Henkenberg is a lava soil, very black soil. We have here in the village a vineyard also called Kirchberg, and the Kirchberg is a place where the magma came out of the earth and became lava. So, and the Henkenberg is just next to the Kirchberg. So this is a lava soil, black soil, and the wines from Henkenberg always show more structure, more saltiness. While this currently is a little bit, well, still influenced by the youth, oak, a little bit of, I say, reductive, a little bit of sulfur matches. But already shows on the palate, on the back of the tongue, more presence. For me, one experience so far with the vintage 18 is that all the qualities of 18 are currently very close to another, and it takes a lot of air and time in the glass for the große Gewächs, the better vineyards, show their potential. So currently 2017 is showing that much better, but 18 is still, my impression is so far, still all the wines are in the same cloud. And the peaks of Henkenberg, Eichberg or Kirchberg are not yet really pushing through, but I'm very, very confident about the aging potential of the Henkenberg. With the Henkenberg, we work with, due to the ripeness that it has, we work with more whole cluster in the fermentation. We are around here 50% of whole cluster in fermentation. Hanckenberg, the name of Hanckenberg is, as I say, it's a little bit funny. Hanckenberg, how do you call that? The people, well, the earlier days, I think in the last one was in the early 18th century, the people were, there was the law was spoken in a neighbor village in Leisheim. There is a Gestühl, a vineyard that is called Gestühl. And this is where the emperor or the kings, when they passed through, they sat there and were speaking right. And Hanckenberg is one place where the right has been, say, fulfilled. So sometimes people have been hung there. Hanging Hanckenberg. I do not think that the saltiness and the iod in the pellet still comes from the blood that's been spread there. But it is a vineyard here. It's the best known in our village, and because it's also one of the biggest vineyards, and is for us in our winery one of the most important. Any questions so far?
Can you tell just the most important thing of the casks you use, the oak?
We work with all the Pinot Noirs. We work with a barrique. That means the Burgundian size. They call it fût. So it's not as flat as the Bordelais size. It's a little bit, I say not as long, but a little bit thicker. And we use normally about for the Große Gewächs. We used to have almost 100% new oak each year, but we have reduced that a lot. So today we use around 40% new oak, and the tonneries that we work with is Rousseau and Chassin. But I have to admit, in the last time we concentrated on Chassin very much, because I feel that our wines, they work very well with Chassin, and the forests that Chassin works with is Juppy and Trancet. So this is where the wines are made in. For the time that we use the barriques, well, it's a total of about 7 to 8 years, always depending how they taste. So the estate Pinot Noir is aged in elder barriques, and Hanckenberg or the Eichberg is first and second use. So almost no third, but first and second. We age the wine in oak for a year, and after this year we take them out and then check if, well, we check earlier also, but sometimes not all of the bricks have finished the malolactic fermentation. So those that have not finished the malolactic fermentation, we keep them aside and blend them in later. But we try to make the blend as early as possible to allow the different sites in the vineyard of Hanckenberg to marry with another as soon as possible. And the bottling has been made for the 2018 has been made in this, now was already November, November 19. So it was only 2 months after have been taken out of the oak, they already have been put in bottle. We have kind of 2 different systems to work. The one for white wine is much different than the one for red wines. For red wine, we do not try to remain as long as possible in oak or then in tank for the marriage. We try to get as soon as possible in bottle as we are able to protect the fruit or our idea of fruit, and for white wines it takes much longer until they're bottled. White wines, we have just bottled the Große Gewächs 17 4 weeks ago. So last year in November was the Große Gewächs 18 red, and this year in July, end of July, it was we bottled Große Gewächs white wine, which is kind of two different styles. So we might taste the Henkenberg and the Eichberg side by side. The Henkenberg 2018 with that very characteristic dark color, and the nose very dense, very well, it is very typical for vintage 18, a little bit darker. The nose of the vintage 17 for me is more fruit again and more classical. And the oak is not as present anymore as it is with vintage 18. The vineyard Eichberg is a vineyard in the vineyard Eichberg also is a volcanic lava, but on top of Eichberg is volcanic ashes that have been that fell down after they have been in the air. So when you walk through Eichberg, even if there was only a little bit, how you say, tau, or a morning wetness in the vineyards, the soil glues to your shoes. That means you get taller and taller walking through Eichberg when it's a little bit wet. The Eichberg is due to that mix of lava and volcanic ashes. The Eichberg normally is a little bit more luxurious than Henkenberg, while Henkenberg is more crystal, more concentrating on one certain fruit. Eichberg tends to be more diverse. If possible, we might already pour the Grauburgunder in the one glass that we keep away from the others, to allow the Grauburgunder to take in more air. When we now taste 2018 and 17, I think it is very much the way it should be. That means 2018 shows a high tannin spectre behind the lips and on the tongue, while 2017 already develops a silkiness, and the only thing is in 17 the acidity is still alive. But in my opinion already shows more drinkability. 2018 sure is a very, very good vintage, especially for reds. But 2017 is a vintage that we are more used to work with. 2019, that is in the cellar, we will take that out just after the vintage. Looks like a blend of 17 and 18, kind of in between these two. Where 2020 will go, we will see. I have no idea yet. Take the Grauburgunder too. I love to rinse with wine instead of water. So now you have vintage 16. Vintage 16 was more characteristical for, not a dry year, rather year with rain before the harvest. 16 was, we had in June and July, we had around 150 liters of rain compared to, in July and August, 150 liters of rain compared to only 45 liters now in 2020. So when you have a lot of rain, sure, the acidity is more protected. We have more time until we harvest. 2016 was harvested much later. Then 2017 we started harvest, I think was the 28th of August, and in 2016 the first day of harvest was, if I remember it right, was the 10th of September. So now you already see between 2018 and the 10th, this is more than 2 weeks, 22nd, this is 19 days difference between when we harvested in 2018 and when we harvested in 2016. 16 was a year where, this is my impression, the tannin structure or the tannin character is still very, very young, very vivid, and in good shape, alive. Was maybe also due to the cooler nights that we had in the ripening process. And well, this Grauburgunder was in oak for 2 years, but here we work not with barrique size, we work with bigger barrels instead. We have a size from the smallest one has 680 liters, and the biggest one that we work with is 5,000 liters. But on the vineyard of Eichberg, I do not have enough wine to fill a barrel with 5,000 liters. This is only, I have 60 R, 0.6 hectare of Grauburgunder in Eichberg. And so this is mostly 2 barrels, 1,200 and 1,300 liters in size, and that is it. Eichberg was, yes, this Grauburgunder was planted in 76. The Eichberg Pinot Noir was 76, and vineyards that we bought, which were supposed to be older, I cannot see anymore when they were planted, because everything that was planted before 1970 is in the German Weinbaukartei is where they write 1900. So it is sure that they were not planted in 1900. They were probably planted in the early 70s, 60s. So these are some of the eldest vineyards that we have in Eichberg. The Henkenberg that we had 2018, there is a blend. There is some of the more modern clones that we planted in 2009 that already had reached the age to be able to use as a Großes. We do that when we have the vineyards around about 7 to 10 years of age, always depending on the taste. If they already develop a certain saltiness in the back of the throat, then we can blend them in. But if they're still too young, we keep it for lower qualities. So Henkenberg, the oldest vineyards we have in Henkenberg are also from the 70s, but the youngest in Henkenberg are from 2009. The Grauburgunder was only 76, so the vineyard of that Grauburgunder is 2 years younger than I am. My mother tells me that I already helped or tried to help planting the vineyard, but I think at the age of 2 years, I wasn't really in good health. 2016, for me, is a year of a very, very good aging potential due to the very young character of the tannin structure. And today it does not show any age at all. For me, only I would still wait another 2 or 3 years to drink it. that is also for the higher qualities of the red wines. We should take a little bit more time until we drink it. I think the first one today, drinkable, is the Estate Pinot Noir, where we focus more on the fruit. But when we work with single vineyards, Gewächs vineyards, we do not have that much focus on the fruit. Instead, we try to have the influence of the stone where they're grown on in the mouth, and this is rather wines that should have a potential of 10 to 20 years of age. Grauburgunder is a great variety that has the skin of Grauburgunder is quite dark brown or reddish brown color. So Grauburgunder, sometimes when it's ripe and you press it, it can have the juices can have kind of a copper color when they run off the press. This is also a reason why the Grauburgunder is more golden in color when it's aging. The beer or winery, we have 40% of Pinot Noir and 40% of Grauburgunder that we grow. The rest is Weißburgunder and Chardonnay. But I have to admit, in the last years, what we planted, also due to the earlier and earlier days that we harvest, or sooner that we harvest a vintage. In the last years, we planted only Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, because the Chardonnay gives me the option of a wider window in which I can place my harvest. The Chardonnay is, you can harvest that earlier, that great variety. Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris would still have behind the lips, still a very kind of a furry, pelzig. Well, German word is pelzig. So you still have a kind of a dry impression behind the lips when the Pinot Blanc or Pinot Gris is harvested too early. I know there is a lot of...
We have one question. How do you spell pelzig?
I really like that expression.
P-E-L and then Z-I-G. P-E-L-Z-I-G. Yeah.
New favorite expression.
Well, we are, as here we are grown up with Grauburgunder and Spätburgunder, basically Grauburgunder and Spätburgunder. The wines, with the selection of what wine to what dish has developed in a direction that when we, for example, when we barbecue, we do not use Spätburgunder. Spätburgunder instead we use after the barbecue, because sometimes the Pinot Noir, Spätburgunder, the tannin character, the tannin, the anthracene, well, the chemical description of that, when the tannins of Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot or Tempranillo, they are have a longer, now I try in English, longer chains of glucosid, and the Pinot Noir is a single glucosid ring. Glucosid is well, the German word that means is a phenyl ring of the 6 carbon atoms, and the longer they are, the more suitable they are with toast aroma. And when you have a barbecue, when you take it freshly from the fire or directly out of the pen, there are kind of burnt characters on the flesh, and that is not good with Pinot Noir. If it is, no matter if the Pinot Noir is from Kaiserstuhl or is from Burgundy, the Pinot Noir prefers dishes that are rather stewed. That means either cheeks or from the cow or the bull, the calf, or the darker birds like duck or goose. This is a situation where Spätburgunder is wonderful to drink with, or after the barbecue. That means if you have a barbecue and then you have a very dark and intense red wine with that, and then after that, when you finished eating, then the Spätburgunder is wonderful to drink. So that means, as we personally do not have a great variety like Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon, we tend to use Pinot Gris for the barbecue, while Pinot Gris is very good to be placed with dishes like risotto or noodles or a mushroom dish. Pinot Gris is able, with the phenol structure that it has, is able to help digest very fat dishes. Apart from that, one thing that is very characteristic for my winery or our wines, we most of the times we are around 1% lower than my colleagues here from the region in alcohol. The 2016 Grauburgunder, I think, it has just reached 13% of volume. Normally, 2017 again is 12.5, and I remember 2014 we only had 12 alcohol on the Große Gewächs because I was happy with what I tasted when I tasted the berries, and I didn't wait for a more concentration of alcohol because I was afraid of losing the youth or the right development of the phenols, of the anthocyanins. Do you have any questions?
What is your thoughts about the basic listing you have in Norway now? What are you expecting?
What are my expectations?
Yeah.
Oh, I try. Well, I hope that with a basic Pinot Noir, the people that taste it are not disappointed, and I hope to be able to do with the estate to have a good how you say business card. For myself, about figures, I never have any thoughts about figures because I'm not a person of figures. It is rather my wife. I'm really grateful to have Caroline and Steinar that helped us to come to the Norwegian market. So for me, it is more kind of it makes me proud to be presented there, and hope to in future that I will not get kicked out again.
But which other wines was in the final heat? You know?
So in the basic listing, it was Salwey's neighbor, Landrer. But you compete in a different price class in Norway, but we were really happy that I was happy that I beat Landrer in July, selling Spätburgunder. So, but the most sold Spätburgunder, the German red wine in Norway in July was Salwey on top and Landrer second.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you have done a good job with your basic estate wine for 2019, and maybe me and Steinar as well.
Yes, I think your job is the even bigger one. I think there has been one development, I have to admit, in the last years in Germany, where there was the basic Pinot Noir had a more and more difficult situation in Germany because the Germans started to drink Primitivo. The Primitivo is a very dark, very high in alcohol, a little bit sweetness, is a wine from Italy, the Primitivo, and the Germans. Well, I'm surprised that in Germany we did not have a chance with the Pinot Noir to compete with that great variety, but that is also a question of what am I looking for? Am I looking for a wine with a certain character, or is it just sweet and black and heavy that I'm looking for? So in the last years, there was a certain pressure on the estate Spätburgunder to develop itself to become better. And this is currently we did a lot of investments to become better for the estate Spätburgunder. We have now a stemmer that we didn't dream of in the last years, but I felt challenged for another step in development. And so today I think that we have reached a level for the estate that we haven't had in the past. Well, sure, one question is, in the past we earned more with the estate Spätburgunder. Today, not that much, but we're very proud of reaching a quality level that we were not able to in the past. So I hope that the acceptance for Pinot Noir is rising again, and for ourselves in the winery, even in this crisis of Corona, we had enough private consumers that really bought a lot. And normally we sell around, in Germany, we sell around 60% of our production to restaurants directly or via retailers. So 60% of our production is drunk in restaurants, and we were really afraid in the month of April and May where this will lead to with this virus. But today I can say that we are ahead of last year. What I absolutely did not expect in the month of April, where I'm always a person that has that is easily affected by I say a certain depression, and 2020 April was the hardest month that we ever had. But May, June, and now July and August were absolutely stunning, fantastic. And this is maybe also something that we felt the problem of the estate Spätburgunder in 2014, 2016, 2015 was a good vintage, so there was no problem. And the investments that we did may now, we may be in a situation where it pays back. Sure. A question?
No, I think
we just need
we need to wrap up, I think, because busy people in the room. There are busy people in the room, so we need to
Okay.
come to an end.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for allowing me to talk a little bit about my wines. I know currently the situation of traveling is a bit harder, but I have to admit, in the last 6 weeks, we call it in our tasting room in the village, we call it Scandinavian weeks, because we had a lot of clients from Denmark, from Norway, from Sweden to come, more than we ever had before. I hope you enjoyed our wines, and I hope you still will enjoy our wines. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Konrad.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.